So just like to ask beforehand.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So what is you got to kind of catch me up to speed here. How did you find me, and how is this relevant to what you're doing?
So I am, first of all, my name's Caitlin. I'm down here in North Carolina at a dog training school. It's called Highland K9. I'm in a master dog training program. So I'm kind of learning the ins and outs of everything.
Okay.
Little bit here and there. I've been dog training police dogs for about 5-ish years and kind of just trying to get more information on that because I've never had any formal training. I've just learned from other trainers. So getting back to how I found you, we had an assignment to follow the Iditarod. It was an extra credit thing. It was voluntary, and if we wanted to, I went ahead and chose to. I wanted to watch it. It was something I've heard about but didn't really know anything about. And with that, we were assigned a bib number, and I drew you.
Nice.
So following through that, I just wanted to kind of learn more about it, and so I followed you throughout the race. We would randomly line up in whatever order you guys were in out there, and kind of went from there. And we followed the entire thing, which was really cool. I got to learn a lot. It's kind of an odd year to follow it, just because it was different.
Yep.
But that's kind of how I found you.
And so you consider, are you a full-time student, or are you a full-time dog trainer?
I'm a full-time student right now. My plans are going back home. I want to go back and open my own business. I've been working as a police dispatcher for the last little bit, and then I'm also in the military.
Oh,
So
nice. Okay. Thank you for your service.
thank you.
Yeah. And then, so where's home if it's not North Carolina?
St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, all right.
So
Right
from the
on.
Midwest.
Yep.
um,
Cool.
it's just kind of, I spent the last year in Cuba before coming down here. I was deployed. So I've kind of been all over the place. There's a chicken walking across. Sorry. They got free range chicken out here on the field. So
What's the temperature there?
it's like 65-ish today. For us, it's
Okay.
cold. For you guys, probably really warm.
Yeah, that would be a really warm day for us. Cool. Yeah, well, I'm happy to answer any questions and tell you about what we do here and about the Iditarod. So by all means, go right ahead.
Awesome. So I guess first things first, how are you feeling? You just had a major surgery.
Oh, I feel pretty good. Yeah, I had a total right hip replacement, which I'm only 39 years old, so that's kind of an extremely young age. Yeah. For whatever reason, my bones in my femurs have been growing in a pointy, like the tops of the femurs have been growing in a pointy like shape, which carved away the cartilage. So I had nothing left. It was extremely painful and bone on bone. And so this Iditarod was super challenging because I couldn't really do much as far as my athletic ability. I couldn't run and I couldn't kick with my leg to kind of like help propel the sled.
Okay.
So the dogs had to do a lot more work, but the surgery was great. It was about 2 weeks ago, and I'm in physical therapy. I have a walking cane, which is pretty cool. I look like an 80-year-old man walking around now, but I'm getting better every day. So
that's good. You're healing fast then.
Yep, 9 weeks, and the titanium rod and the bone should be completely healed and grown together, and I should be fine.
Awesome.
Yep.
How did you? Because you're from Ohio originally, right?
Correct.
How did you get into sled racing? Sled dogs.
Well, yeah, there's not much dog mushing going on in Ohio. There are like little pockets throughout Ohio where there are recreational mushers or people that do summer mushing with their pet dog.
Really?
You know, they'll hook them up to their bicycle or, you know, skating, like rollerblading or something. I heard about it through a good friend of mine who I went to high school with. When he went to college, he got a job in Skagway, Alaska, which is down in the southeastern part of Alaska.
Okay.
And there are cruise ships that kind of go up that coastline, and all the cruise ship passengers want to go dog mushing. And so they hired him as a college student to help handle all the sled dogs. He came back home and told me all about it. and I applied and got the same job, but I got a job in Juneau.
Okay.
And that was 2006. And I was going to Ohio State at that time. So I would go to school. In the summer, I would go to Juneau and work the tourism industry as a dog handler.
Okay.
Not knowing anything about dog mushing, I was just harnessing and brushing and socializing the dogs, and scooping up their poop, obviously.
Of course.
Yep, that's always part of it. So I did that I've been in the tourism industry ever since. So for the last 15 years, I've been working tours in the summer and or the winter ever since 2006. So that's kind of how I got into it.
That's crazy.
It's wild. You never know, man. Once you never know what door is going to open once you graduate from your class. And like you said, you've already been to Cuba, and you never know where you're going to go.
No, not at all. So you just got interested in the sport of it by being out there all the time and seeing it?
Yeah, I mainly got into it because I love dogs. It doesn't matter what kind of dog. It could be a Pomeranian or a Husky. And I really like just being outside. I feel more comfortable outside than maybe like a desk job.
Oh, I understand.
And so dog mushing, I never thought I could make a living from it. I thought it would just be a summer thing to kind of get me to my next career.
Okay.
And one thing led to another. It just slowly started,
And now it's your career.
Now it's my career. Yeah. So we have 50 dogs. I have two guides. My wife and I have 2 guides and 50 dogs, and we all live here on site. Okay. And we give tours every day, rain or shine. And then we race the dogs in the winter when our racing season is at its height, which is in the winter time.
Okay. So what are some of your biggest accomplishments with racing?
What are some of the
biggest accomplishments on the racing side?
Well, so we finished 9 out of the 10 Iditarods that we've participated in, which I'd love to finish 10, but we didn't finish one of them. That's a whole nother story. There are a lot of other races besides the Iditarod. The Iditarod is a 1,000-mile race, and then there are dozens of 100, 200, and 300, and even 400-mile races.
Okay.
And so there's a 300-mile race called the Kuskokwim 300. Usually it gives you the race's name, and then the number following it is how many miles it is. So the Kuskokwim 300 takes place on the Kuskokwim River, and that's considered to be one of the fastest and most competitive races in the state. Really? Yeah. And so we actually won that one in 2019, but we did it in a way where we broke the speed record, and it was a 25-year standing speed record. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
A testament to how athletic and fast our dogs are.
Mm-hmm.
And the year before that, we were awarded the humanitarian award from the same race. So in 2018, the veterinarians, and on every race, there are volunteer veterinarians that donate their time and expertise to make sure the dogs are okay. They awarded us the humanitarian award, which means they thought we took the best exemplary care of our dogs out of the whole field. That was pretty cool.
That's really cool.
And then we've been able to get that award in 2 other races as well. So the Willow 300, the Copper Basin 300, and the Cusco 300, we were awarded the humanitarian award. So those are some of our highlights in our small career. So just about 10 years of racing.
That's incredible to me. So with that, you were saying how that one was like a much faster race. Do you have to race different dogs, or are they the same dogs that you would use in, say, the Iditarod or one of the longer races?
They're actually the same dogs.
Okay.
So yeah, they can. There's three kind of like. So there's the Iditarod, which is considered long distance. Mm-hmm. A 300-mile race is considered mid distance, and then a 100-mile race and shorter is considered a sprint.
Okay.
And we're a long distance kennel, so our dogs have to be a little more of a hybrid where they can run the 1,000-mile and all the other ones.
Okay.
But if you were to talk to a different musher who maybe just focuses on 300-mile races, but they don't want to touch Iditarod, their dogs might be a little maybe a little different. They might be built more for speed, maybe a shorter hair and a deeper chest, so they have better lung capacity. They might be going a little faster, and they wouldn't do well in the 1,000-mile race. But
Okay.
ours are a hybrid, so they can run in all different types.
You can run in all of them. Do you have to prepare differently for the shorter distance ones for the longer ones, or is the preparing for them a similar process?
It's kind of a similar process, but that's the chicken and the egg question. It's a great debate. At some point, you have to figure out what your dog needs in order to do the task at hand. And does that mean it needs 3 months of training or just 2 months of training? And every dog is totally different. Even within the litter, you can have a completely line bred litter, but some mature much faster than the other ones. So it's hard to figure out sometimes.
So then do you breed your own at your kennel?
We do now. Yep. So my wife and I, we have a diverse enough kennel to where we have a breeding stock to where we won't, anytime you line breed, it is inbreeding. If you want to have a Belgian Malinois or whatever, it would be considered inbreeding, but in the dog world, we call it line breeding.
Right.
But we have a safe enough genetic pool to where we're not going to get any side effects that would be considered unhealthy. So
right.
Our breed, we don't get hip dysplasia. We get a low case of arthritis. We get no cataracts. So all of those problems we can weed out in the selective gene pool, where we can pick the best, healthiest ones.
Yeah. What kind of dogs do you work with, or breed primarily?
So our dogs that we have here at the kennel are called Alaskan Huskies. Okay. That's not a purebred dog. In our sport, in dog mushing, the only purebred dog that people would use, you can use, like we established, you can use any dog. But within the sport, if you're trying to be competitive, there's the Siberian Husky, the Malamute, maybe the Samoyed, and then the Alaskan Husky. The first three are purebred. The last one, the Alaskan Husky, is not a purebred dog. So they look like a melting pot. Like there's red ones and brown ones and gray ones. And
I noticed a lot of them, like it just looks like a bunch of, in my world, mixed breed dogs, because it's not what I'm necessarily used to. But that's why I'm curious. It just seems like a lot of them are more mixed breeds than there are purebreds anymore.
They are totally mixed breed. We do have competitors and friends that only want to run Siberians, but they are at a huge disadvantage because their gene pool is so small.
Oh, really?
They can only breed, like if there are 10,000 Siberian Huskies in the world, they can only breed 10 out of that 10,000, But the Alaskan Husky, there are a ton of them because the breed is so diverse.
Really? That's pretty cool, actually. I wouldn't have thought of it that way. It's the dog world, they make out purebreds to be up here somewhere. And
you're right. When I came from Ohio, I was in the same, we had Labradors, and it was all about pure breeds. Think of it like in terms of some sport in North Carolina, if it's NASCAR racing or basketball, the Tar Heels, if they only drafted players from North Carolina, they would have a pretty good team. But if they went outside the state line and started getting other players, their genetic pool would get so much better.
That's just crazy to think about, but it makes a lot of sense. And like looking back, any mixed breed dog I've had throughout my life has been 100 times healthier than most of the purebreds. I have 2 right now that I'm constantly watching for signs of either hip dysplasia or there's dogs running out over there. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, it's all good.
They just got released from class, and now all the dogs are getting some running time.
No, that's totally fine. The one stipulation for our breed, if you want to get them in a race, they have to have a double coat. So you couldn't just take a German short hair pointer and say, all right, this is a sled dog. You would have to breed that one to a husky to have a double coat.
Is that because of like the weather, just the temperatures?
Yep. So there are a bunch of things in place to make sure the dogs are going to be okay. And so I think this is my wife, Liz, coming in. So now you had the dog. Now I got,
Hello. Yeah. One of my dogs, they let out, so she keeps checking in on me. She's like, why
No
are you
problem.
sitting in the corner? So with saying, I guess with all that, then when did you start your kennel? How long has your kennel itself been open?
I started, well, my family and I, we kind of, with a lot of help from my family, we started it in 2013.
Okay.
And Liz and I got married last year, so we've kind of just been evolving it over the last few years.
That's awesome.
Yep.
How long does it take you to prepare for, I guess, the Iditarod itself? How long would it take you to prepare? I know it's kind of like a long process with other races mixed in, but
Totally. Well, as you know, owning a dog, training never stops. It's kind of like not owning a kid, but having a child. It's kind of like the training, you can't just shut it off. You can always teach an old dog something new. That was debunked on Mythbusters. But if you really get it down without like the philosophical side of it, training for the Iditarod usually starts in the fall, where we start looking at the temperature. The temperature starts to get colder, which usually means that the dogs can run a little bit longer.
Okay.
When it's warm, our sled dogs don't react to the heat that well, so we have to wait till the temperatures get a little colder. So usually October, right around there, we start training.
What's warm for you guys?
Anything above 40 degrees would probably be warm. And this is all from a dog perspective.
Right. No, absolutely.
But keep in mind, I have some dogs that have short white coats, and then I have dogs that have black thick coats. So those dogs, the black thick dogs, think it's really hot when it's 32.
That makes sense.
It's different. Yeah.
I have a Malinois and a long-haired German Shepherd, and the long-haired German Shepherd's feeling it a lot quicker than the Mal is.
Exactly. And that's the whole point. You have to know your dog.
Right. No, absolutely. Because, I mean, I've met long-haired dogs that outlast short-haired dogs, too. It just depends on what their conditioning is at any given time.
Totally.
So I guess it's a real random question in my head, but what does your everyday life look like with like training the dogs and?
Well, so like today, for example, racing is over. There are no more. The last race of the season took place. There's one big race after the Iditarod. Iditarod takes place in first week of March. And then the first week of April, there's a 400-mile race. We've never participated in that one, but that's usually kind of the end of the long distance racing season. So right now, a typical day is we wake up around 7 a.m., let all the pet retired dogs out of the house, which usually is 2 to 5 dogs. And then we go outside and feed, water, and scoop the yard. So we have a kennel of 50 total dogs, and they live outside. That takes half hour, and of course if you want to hang out and pet them more during breakfast, that could take an hour. Then we come inside, get breakfast, and then we start running them around 10 a.m. Usually 2 to 3 hours after they get their meal in the morning, we can start exercising them.
Okay.
And right now we're at the end of the tourism season. So we're still getting people that are traveling here. They're jumping through all the COVID restrictions to get to Alaska, and we can give them sled dog rides. That's usually about a 5-mile ride, and they can either sit or we can teach them to stand and mush their own sled.
Huh.
And yeah,
so when I visit Alaska, I need to come find your kennel because I think that sounds phenomenal.
Oh, it's great. They're like, people say they're life-changing tours because they get to actually feel the raw power of the dogs pulling. And so we'll do that from 10 a.m. and our latest tour can go till 7 o'clock at night. And it's just hit or miss depending on how many people want to come.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so that's every day. Some days we have one guest show up and some days we have 10 guests show up. It just completely depends.
As with everything in the dog world. Did you have any issues like adjusting? It sounds crazy. Weather to me is always like, it's crazy how so many different places are affected, but like moving from Ohio to Alaska, did that affect you? Did it take you a long time to like adjust to it?
I think so. Yeah. It took maybe I remember when I first made the move, I was so confused because it was the middle of winter.
Mm-hmm.
When I made a full-time like commitment, I said, okay, I'm going to live in Alaska for the full year, as opposed to just coming up for the summers.
Mm-hmm.
It was dark. Oh, here's one of mine.
Oh, hello, baby.
Okay. Hey. Okay. Bye.
He's like, I'm out.
So that's one of the matriarchs of the kennel.
Oh, really?
It's in winter. It's dark for like more than half the day, and in the summertime, it's the sun's up for 18 or 19 hours. So that was really strange to get used to the light difference. And then the cold. Yeah, coming from Ohio, I don't think I'd ever felt anything below 10 below zero. I mean, it's 40 below zero on a regular basis up here. That's really cold. So you have to learn how to manage your what you wear. Like, you know, you can wear cotton down there and feel pretty good in the South, but nobody wears cotton up here because of that moisture that it builds up. You got to get it away from your skin. So wool, you know, it's just a totally different layering system.
That's, I don't like the cold. I like to pretend I like the cold, and I don't like the cold.
Yeah, I don't like the cold either, but the dogs do.
That is true. That blows my mind. It gets so cold up there, and it's something I didn't realize until like following the Iditarod and looking up into like the weather conditions and how much they kept talking about. I'm like, you guys are talking about it being warm, and it's like 10 degrees outside.
I know. Yeah, you do get used to it. Once you go through the winter and it's 0, 10 below, it warms up to 20 above or 30 above. And next thing you know, you're just in a hoodie, but it's still 30 degrees and you're totally fine. So you have to be careful.
Yeah. It's 65 here and I'm wearing a hoodie today, if that tells you anything. My body is not used to it at all. What is like the difficult process of owning, I guess, both the kennel and just training the dogs that you have?
Well, it's changed over the years. You know, when I was like 6 or 7 years ago, it was just me and 20 dogs. It was just me. I was a single guy and I only had 20 dogs, and that was my main concern. Okay. And so it was always, how am I going to afford 20 dogs for the year? You know, that was my main objective. And it's slowly evolved over the years. Now it's no longer just me. You know, my wife and I, we have a business, and so it's how much money do we need on a daily basis to be able to run this thing? And you know, at some point you don't want to look at the dogs like they're a number, because that makes it sound like you don't care about the dog. But at some point you literally need X amount of dollars to afford this many dogs. So
absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
I do, because I go crazy and I have 6.
Yeah. I never in a million years, like 10 years ago, I was, there's no way you can. But we've been able to create a lifestyle to where we can just have this many dogs, because there's still a demand for tourism where people want to come meet them. And so
awesome.
Our kennel license says 50. We had basically like an animal control officer come here and inspect the dogs, make sure they're healthy. Where do you put all the dog waste? Does every dog have access to clean, healthy water? Where's the food? Where do you store the food? What's your emergency evacuation plan if there's a forest fire? So we have to be able to take all 50 dogs at once and be able to move them. So we have a big enclosed trailer, and all 50 dogs can go in the trailer. They all have their own cubby. So there are all these steps in place to make sure you can have a kennel of that size. And thankfully we have all of that stuff in line. We have all of the records, all of the rabies shots, and, you know, lineages. I got all the pedigrees 10 years back, 10 generations back. So it's a bona fide, like, really cool business where, I don't know, I guess as an adult, my perspective has just changed to make sure the dogs are happy and healthy, and can I afford them?
Right. No, absolutely. That's my dogs back home on a much, obviously, smaller scale, because I have 6, but I have 2 dogs, and they don't want to do anything but be in a kennel. If I let them wander the house, it's like that's the end of the world for them. They're outdoor kennel dogs, and if the weather's real bad, storms and stuff, they go in the basement in their kennels, and they're the happiest.
Yep.
But then I have, let's see, I'm running a FEMA dog right now. I have my puppy. He's my long-haired shepherd he's a puppy. And then I got two pets. I have a service, and then I have just a regular pet dog. He failed service dog school as a puppy. I mostly have shepherds. I never thought shepherds were going to be my breed, and now German shepherds are my breed.
Are these German shepherds? Were they bred in Germany, or are these like the American version?
I have one so I have my fiance's retired police dog, and he was bred and born in Slovakia. We got him at 18 months. I have an American line. He was born in the U.S. One of the best, honestly, looking American line German shepherds I've seen. He just didn't have it. He didn't make the cut for service dogs. He's kind of scared of everything of his own shadow. You walk him outside and he's afraid if it's not his yard. He doesn't like cars, stuff like that.
No.
I have Tango the puppy. He was born here. Both of his parents came from Czech Republic. But he was bred by a breeder who I've known for a long time. I've wanted one of their dogs for a long time, but like you were saying, I didn't feel like I had the means to take care of and pay for. I was working 12-hour shifts, and that wasn't fair.
Right.
And then my Malinois, as far as I know, she's purebred. I actually just got her. I flew out to Colorado maybe 4 weeks ago, and picked her up. I'm still learning her. She's 3. She's psycho. She's over there destroying a tennis ball.
How is that integration process bringing her into the pack?
She's very, very in the dog world submissive.
Okay.
So she's meshed so far just fine. She hasn't met 3 of my dogs. They're back home. Okay. I have 3 of them currently down here. I'm sending one home next weekend. He's my service dog. We call him the baby of the family because he's just a big baby. He can do a lot. He was an agility dog for a while until he couldn't figure out weave poles, and he's a great dog. He's a mutt. He's my mix. He's a border collie something mix, and he runs my house. He was my smallest dog, and he was my alpha of the pack. That's all he cared about was making sure all the other dogs were in line. But him and her got into it, I think, twice, and ever since then they know their spots. And other than that, I mean, they're good. The other one she had to compete with was the puppy, and well, he's 5-month-old puppy. So
sounds like a good family.
We'll see how she does when we get back in June, and I don't think she'll have issues. She's just very submissive. Other dogs come out, or she kind of just bows down or goes and does her own thing. So she's crazy.
Well, congratulations on getting engaged.
Oh, thank you. Happened as soon as I got back from deployment. So it's awesome. A new thing, and then I left again. So
when was that, like within the last month or two that you got engaged?
Got engaged on Thanksgiving, so November. Okay. And then I left January 1st.
Oh, that's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And congratulations on getting married.
Thank you. Yep. Really happy.
Sounds like it. It's awesome. And it seems like you guys have a lot in common.
We do. Well, of course we do. But my wife, Liz, she didn't come from a dog background. Her family, they had a pet dog growing up. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, like a typical, had a dog in the family. But the whole owning a kennel is something new to her. And then she's from a journalism background. She went to school and was a professional news anchor. And so she was on the morning news here in Anchorage when I met her. And then COVID and some other things happened, and that news station, they closed, and everybody basically lost their job. She didn't have a job with the new news agency that absorbed her current news station. Okay. And that forced us into opening our own business. So we opened our business, which is called Alaskan Husky Adventure. So I've always had the sled dogs, but it was more of a racing thing. Okay. And once Liz lost her job, we said, hey, why don't we put our dogs on display year round? And so Liz and I, that kind of spawned that. And
That's
So we
awesome.
found that we have even more in common now where we own this business together. So it's on in the weirdest way, it's been a blessing in disguise that, you don't ever wish
It
anyone to
happens
lose
for a
their
reason.
job, but there's another possibility around the corner, of something happening.
That's that's incredible.
Yeah. During a pandemic too. I mean,
Yes.
trying to start a business, but we've been pleasantly surprised at still the amount of people that want to travel despite going through all these hoops. So
Are
it's
there
like,
extra precautions like coming up to Alaska versus just traveling throughout, I guess, the main part of the United States?
there is, and it's one of those evolving things. Over the last year, there was a shutdown. You weren't allowed to drive through Canada, so it was strictly through air. No one was allowed to actually like go through Canada. So that was shut off. I don't really know if that's open now, the border, but it's something that's kind of slowly coming back out now. A lot of people are getting vaccinated here in the cities and the rural villages. So our biggest kind of punch to the gut is the cruise line industry. A lot of people rely heavily on the cruise ship passengers,
Mhm.
and they have already canceled most of the season coming up. So
Crazy. I know my
we're gonna
parents have a cruise planned for Alaska and it's been put off twice now, and they're like, "Well, we'll go whenever they tell us."
Yeah, yeah. People, if they want to fly in, they're allowed to do that. But yeah, the cruise ship industry is really getting hurt.
That's it's unfortunate.
It
It
is.
slowly
It is.
seems like everything's starting to come back and open up, and I'm fingers
We
crossed.
me too. Yeah, we really hope that the world wakes back up.
So then I guess with COVID, I do have a couple questions that just kind of revolve around this past race this year.
Sure.
With it being different, I did a lot of research on the Iditarod, but of course this year's race was quite a bit different. So I didn't. There's a whole lot that I don't even think that you could even find online if you tried to look it up.
Sure.
But I guess in your opinion, how was the Gold Trail loop different from like just the traditional route? Um, in sense of it was a loop, but what I guess was different on your end?
So the main difference was, um, well, in the history of the Iditarod, it started in 1973. It's never been traveled in reverse. So there are sections of the trail where we go down, and it's a pretty steep drop on some of the mountain passes and some of the gorges.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're asking us to turn around and go up some of those spots, and it was challenging. The dogs did it just fine, but as the human, we knew we just went through a really treacherous technical spot, and so
Mm-hmm.
the entire race, you're just counting the miles before you hit those same spots the other way.
Oh,
So you kind of have to turn your brain off and think like a dog, like, I'm not worried about tomorrow, I'm just worried about right now, you
just keep
know.
going.
Yeah, it's like I'm in the moment and I don't really care what's around that corner, but it's hard because you know what you just went through, you know where you crashed, and so you got to go through it again.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the other thing that was different was we would have head-on passes. So a dog team's coming, and we have to pass them because we were sharing the same trail. Um, Most of the time, the dogs will pass just fine, but if the trail is super narrow and windy and technical, it you have to be a really good dog driver, and your dogs have to be really really good about minding their business and going right on by.
I was gonna say,
Um,
did you notice that there were any issues with the head on? Because that to me was almost like terrifying to think of. You got two sleds of dogs going head to head with each other, like when they're not
yep,
used to it.
totally. I have a dog named Motorhead, and he is like one of your like the Belgian Malinois you have, where just totally submissive in the dog world.
Mm-hmm.
If he's probably more scared. He sees another team, he starts jumping on his back feet, and he's like looking around while running. He's like jumping and looking, and then as soon as they get close, he just stops.
Oh.
And so my team would just stop and pile up, and so I would have to stop, and I would kind of line my dogs out and get off the trail in the deep snow so I could allow the other team to go by.
Okay.
That happened a couple times where my guys just got scared for whatever reason. Maybe they were startled. Maybe we weren't going fast enough. There's so many things. But then the other half of the time, I had a really strong front end, and they just motor right on by, just like two cars passing on the highway. They're fine.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. It's just not something that you would think of, I guess, preparing for in the sense because it's not normal.
Totally. It depends on their mood too. Sometimes they're super confident, and sometimes they can get spooked and mentally shut down.
At the end of the day, they're still living creatures.
Totally. Yeah.
So were you able to develop like a different strategy for this new route in compared to like other years?
Yes. Yeah. Because since it was a different route, they changed the rules. You have to take a mandatory 24-hour break on the Iditarod. And this year, since it was an out and back, normally you can take it anywhere you want at a checkpoint, at any checkpoint. But this year, they told you could only take it between a certain amount of checkpoints. They wanted to kind of keep everyone in a certain area. So that was different. And then there was you have to take another 8-hour break. And then finally, you have to take an additional 8-hour break. And so all of those mandatory breaks, they told you where you had to take them. So,
oh, really?
Yep. That was a little bit, so that kind of changed our strategy a bit. And that pretty sure. And then some of the other checkpoints, you can normally send out about 50 to 100 pounds of supplies. Some of those checkpoints, they said we weren't allowed to send supplies to there. So that meant that you had to pack more in your sled before you got there. So it just depends. It means that you have to start camping in different places and carrying more gear and changing your strategy in that sense. So things did change because it was a different course.
That's understandable because they completely changed it. It's not what you guys are used to doing at all.
Yep.
Do you feel the same sense of accomplishment with the race being shortened to the loop, or do you still feel just as accomplished with the new challenges that it presented?
It was totally different. It didn't feel like, it didn't feel like the Iditarod to me, because for the 9 previous Iditarods, we were going north to Nome, and you get to stop in these villages and see your friends. But because it's COVID, we weren't allowed to interact with anyone.
Right.
And we were going back. So it just didn't feel the same. And because of that, it didn't feel like the same accomplishment. They deterred crowds from gathering at the finish line. So it was less of a party in that sense of people cheering and congratulating you. So there's a sense of accomplishment, and it felt great to do it, but it just wasn't the same. So again, it just didn't feel the same.
No, I can understand that. And the distance was shorter than normal as well, was it not?
Yeah, it was about 120 miles shorter, I think, somewhere around in there, which is about a full day, another full day of racing.
So based off that, I'm assuming you prefer the traditional route better than the loop route?
I do, yeah. I'm
Any
a big time
particular reason why?
Just the history, and also in the military, you could probably appreciate this idea of always moving forward, never giving up, just kind of adapting and overcoming and achieving that whole idea. And it's weird to go out and then just like, okay, now we're going back, and it's just
a different feeling.
If that was the Iditarod every year, I'd be cool with it. But since I'm a traditionalist, it just was totally different.
There's history behind the original race, and it's like just continuing on with that.
For sure.
Do you feel like COVID had a major impact on the race, like with the lack of spectators and less staff being out there?
Most definitely. It affected Iditarod in every capacity, from spectators to allowing us to keeping us going into the native communities, tourism coming up, like everything. We were COVID tested at multiple checkpoints. It affected everything.
I assumed it was just one of those, like, how did it, like, I mean, you guys are used to having all the spectators out there and having people that you can stop in, and I just couldn't imagine doing it. It's kind of like the rest of the sports out there with the empty stadiums and stuff. It just feels different.
That's kind of what we likened it to. I mean, they're basketball games with fake cardboard cutouts, and now they got fake applauses when they make a basket. I mean, just it wasn't manufactured in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have competitors that have set up mannequins out on the trail to mimic people, because there's normally people waving and shouting. So the dogs need to see that stimulus so they get used to it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's good for them, like that they even thought of that, like, because it is different for the dogs if they're used to people being out there versus if they're not.
Exactly. Yeah. And then when they do see someone shouting and, waving a flag, some of the young ones might get spooked.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. It's different for them. They're definitely creatures of habit.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just end it off with, what's your most memorable experience from this year's race?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, this is easy. So that same dog, Motorhead, every year the team is different, even though I've had my dogs, Motorhead's 5 years old, and so he's run 4 Iditarods. This was his 4th Iditarod. I have never, ever led Motorhead in a race ever. He is not what we would consider a lead dog.
Okay.
Although during training, every single dog we have in our kennel will get a chance in lead, because we want to teach them that, leading is fun. It's cool to be the dog up front where you get to, steer the team and listen to the commands. But he is really shy, and when he sees another dog, he gets, like I said, he shuts down mentally. He like overthinks things. Well, if a dog gets an injury on the race, it's called returning a dog. So throughout the event, if one dog can't continue, you're allowed to send that dog home.
Okay.
I had to send some of my best leaders home because of certain things. And next thing you know is I need some of these other dogs to step up. And so I tried Motorhead out in lead, and he did a phenomenal job. Oh my gosh, look at that goat.
You never know what's going to be wandering around over
Is that a Belgian Malinois goat or what?
It's something. His name's Finn, and he knows how to break out of. He has a kennel. Because he gets out of wildlife enclosures.
Is that a goat for like for milking, or?
No, the owner takes in some animals. So we have 3 goats, a horse, a mini horse, a donkey, a bunch of chickens. It's great for desensitizing dogs.
That's awesome.
But Finn over here, he wears a collar because he breaks out of kennels.
Oh, so they got to like chain him up?
You got to put a collar on him to walk him back, and he likes to terrorize the dogs every once in a while and chase them around. He's doing that right now. That's why he's over here.
That would be good. That would be good training for dogs. Well, Motorhead, he really gave me a sense of like a lot of proud dad moments, where I was worried that we didn't have the front end of the team to get us through some of the more technical sections. Sometimes there's glare ice the dogs need to, pitter patter and run along, and if it's really windy or if there's another team coming. And so I asked a lot of Motorhead, and he responded really well. There was only a few times where he looked at me like, "Hey, I don't know what to do. I don't know where the trail is, and what do I do? Because here comes a dog team." So in those situations, I would get out and kind of walk and show him where the trail was.
Okay.
Motorhead became a bona fide lead dog, and he has never led in a race ever. And I was just so proud of him. So that was our biggest moment this year.
He had a lot of trust in you then.
He's awesome. And he does trust me, and I trust him.
That's cool. That's really cool. That's an awesome story too that you have, especially with it being this year's race and everything being different.
I'll have to send you a picture of Motorhead.
Absolutely. What happened to your lead dogs?
So oh no, it's cool. So one of the best, her name is Foxy.
Okay.
I returned her about halfway because she didn't like the speeds we were going at.
Okay.
She's more of a 9-mile-an-hour dog, and we were traveling at 9 and 10.
Okay.
So she literally just didn't want to go at that speed. And I have two choices. I can put her in the sled and carry her, or I can just send her home. And so we chose to, she was completely healthy, but again, I thought we could maintain those speeds, but then Pantera, who is another one of our better leaders, both of these dogs are female.
Okay.
Pantera had a sore right tricep. So as she's running, she could have just overextended and she just had a sore muscle. And so for a couple runs, I would stop and massage her and she was fine. But then the third run, it was apparent that massaging wasn't enough to get that knot out of her muscle. So she needed a full day or two off. So we sent her home. Who else? Heisman had both sore triceps, but he always gets sore triceps because he's a loper. He always just lopes.
Oh yeah.
He never slows down. He's a high energy dog, and that's his upside, but it's also his downside.
Right.
And let me think. Offhand, I had one dog that had a sprained ankle. Oh. Normally, you can put massage oil on the sprained ankles, and you can keep a wrap on them when they're resting, and that soreness will go away over time. But this one did not, so we sent her home. So I had a sore ankle and some tricep issues, and then one dog that didn't like the speed we were going on.
Thankfully, nothing too major.
No, it's usually nothing. It's usually not like there are extremes. 1 year, actually, that dog that was over here, Cool Cat, 1 year she had a twisted stomach during the race.
Oh,
that veterinarian performed life-saving surgery during the Iditarod. So he had to poke her stomach and relieve all the pressure, and they life flighted her to Anchorage. And that is a totally non-running related issue that can happen to anybody at any time. And the veterinarians saved her life. It's well documented.
The most terrifying thing to me.
Oh, I was a mess.
I fully believe it. I had my dog go into the first stages of bloat, and I had him at the highly food motivated dog, wouldn't touch food, treats, water. We were at the ER and they're like, if you had waited, your dog wouldn't have made it. I was like, oh, no.
Yeah. And we were in a native community in the middle of nowhere, and they poked her stomach, flew her to the next big village, and they said, we can't do it here. We have to fly her to Anchorage. So it was like 8 hours of them monitoring her and poking her stomach to get the gas out. And then she's totally alive and healthy because of those Iditarod veterinarians.
That's awesome. Oh, while you're trying to finish a race.
Oh yeah, I was ready to quit, but then the vets kept saying, nope, she's alive, she's okay. And I was like, okay,
yeah, I'll keep going.
Yeah, it was a sad moment, but it turned out to be one of the best stories ever.
That's awesome.
And of course, PETA attacked us, but it has nothing to do with running. It has everything to do with biology of just, it can happen to you right now. Like it's happened to people, so.
It happens. If you own a dog, it's bound to happen at some point. If you own dogs your whole life, so.
Something's going to happen.
It sucks, but it's part of, they're living creatures. It's like telling you to never go out and get sick or get hurt.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And we don't want to live our life through that. We'd rather go out, and I'm okay with twisting an ankle because we're having fun doing it and we're going outside and exploring. I'd much rather do that than sit around and not do anything.
No, absolutely. I don't handle being inside well. And I'm, like you said, I dispatched for the last few years, and I'm like you, desk jobs just aren't my thing. I would be out like, yeah, I'm dispatching. I'm like pacing the room because I don't sit still well. And it's like, that's kind of where the dog training for me came in, is like, I just needed to get out. Like, I've loved dogs. I've worked with them on the law enforcement side, just part-time when I could, volunteer time. Started out as just being the guy in the decoy suit. And have.
Oh, were you getting bit?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. I did that once. That is crazy.
It's like my favorite thing in the world.
That is awesome.
But it's one of those that it's like, I don't sit still well. And if one of my dogs get injured because we're out on a trail and something happens, and I run my dogs, all my dogs run off lead, and we run them in the trails and they love it, but things happen.
Yeah. totally. I mean, if they step on a rock and get a scratch or bust a toenail, that's also the part of owning a dog, is learning how the first aid and take care. And if you can't, you take them to the vet. But a lot of times, owners like us, we learn more about the dogs because we can take care of minor issues, which is a lot of fun, and it's educational.
I don't generally go out without some kind of first aid kit for them. I'll take one for them over one for me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I usually
Yeah.
have a full canine one in my car, because if I can get them back to the car, it's fine. But I want to be able to take care of them once they're back to the car. And I've done I've wrapped more paws on trails, because people there's always glass on them. It seems like any trail I go to, there's glass on the trail.
That is something we do not deal with up here, and
That's wonderful.
I don't miss the lower 48 in that sense. There's just too many disrespectful people that litter, and the dogs bear the brunt of that.
Yeah, they do. And it's sad for them. And then we have a lot of irresponsible dog owners where they don't have control. My dog, the dog I'm sending home right now, has staples in his ear, because my dog's she's e-collar trained, so I run him on the e-collar just because he chases squirrels or deer or any fast-moving animal.
Four-legged animal.
So on e-collar, he's great. He won't even touch him. He knows the collar's on. He's a collar smart dog. But I had control over him, and I had a dog that came up to him, and he got him on the ear and started a dog fight, and they had no control over their dog. And it's like, I'm not going to not take him out on trails off leash where he can roam and actually get his exercise and burn energy.
Right.
But there's so many people down here that take their dogs and just cut them loose, and it's like the owner wasn't even in sight.
Oh, that's not good. Yeah.
So I'm trying to break out on the side of a dog I don't know.
Yeah. Thankfully, it's just an ear and not like a.
Oh, yeah. Much better. It was just an ear. Although the ear bleeds, as you know.
Oh,
no
yeah.
worries. My whole pant leg was covered in blood, and I'm like putting him in the kennel in my car and trying to get him to the ER vet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they shake your head, and then there's blood here, and then blood here, and then blood here, and blood here.
It's everywhere. And it was like in a crease. He has floppy ears. He has the floppy collie ears, and it's like in the crease in his ear, and it's like awkwardly stapled. He finally gets him out, and I'm like, hey, you know what? You're gonna get more exercise back home, and he's gonna go home and play with the rest of my herd back there.
Yep. And that's also, these kinds of stories, even though it's a bite on the ear, like there's so many stories like that for dog owners that it's not that ear bites are fun, but it's always an adventure. You never know. And then your bond with that dog is so much better. You're taking care of the dog. It looks up to you, you take the staples out. Like it's just
something. And it's
worth it.
Awesome.
Those little things are worth, are worth the whole package of owning a dog.
Oh, absolutely. And he showed a lot of trust in me, because he's sitting there and we're trying to clean it out, because I didn't know how bad it was at that point. There's just blood everywhere. And I'm like, okay, does this even warrant going somewhere? Or can I put some quick clot on it and call it a day? And I'm trying to clean it out with some iodine. And if he's snapping at me, I knew it was bad. And I was like, oh no. I was trying to get it cleaned out. And then all of a sudden you saw the big slit. I was like, yep, we're going.
Yeah.
This is something I don't have in my toolkit here with me right now. And thankfully it all worked out. And he's fine. He's bored. That's the worst of it, is he's been on basically kennel rest in a cone. Yeah. And he's trying to start like play wrestling with other dogs, or getting other dogs to lick his ear so they will scratch it for him. I'm like, no, dude.
Slow down. Just a few more days, buddy.
A few more. And you'll have the cone off. You'll get to go home. You can play with all your friends. But just chill out here for a little bit. Yeah. But other than that, is there anything else, just advice from you, that you have with going into this industry? And obviously it's a little different. I'm not going on the... I say that as of right now, that's not my plan, but who knows where I'll end up.
Yeah, I love dogs. Well, you sound like a very smart lady. You're going to schooling. Yes, you have 6 dogs, which is a lot, but I would just say to continue to take it slow. And in my industry, everybody's different. So there are some people that acquire too many dogs too quickly, and all of a sudden they have a kennel and they can't afford to feed them.
Mm-hmm.
And dogs get repossessed or get taken from them, and they make the news, and they have malnourished dogs, and their heart's in the right place, but their wallet wasn't in the right place. And so, I mean, it's taken me to this point. I acquired my first dog in 2006, and now it's 2021, and I have a kennel of 50, which again sounds crazy, but as long as you keep educating yourself and keep asking other dog owners, hey, can you give me a little piece of advice? As long as you do what's right for your dog and you always put their intentions in front of yours, you're gonna have a great career with dogs. And then just do right by your dogs, and you never know where you're gonna end up. I mean, it could be dog mushing in Alaska. It also could be a head dog trainer for the U.S. Army. Who knows? I mean, all kinds of stuff. Bomb sniffing for like airports, all kinds of cool stuff.
There's so many
COVID detection, like dogs sniffing out COVID, all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking time to talk to me. Yeah. Honestly, I know you got a lot going on, especially with having surgery, and it's your off season now, so.
No problem. I'm gonna go outside and greet some guests. We have we have 2 people showing up here pretty soon, and then I got to take my snow machine in for service. It's broken down.
Oh no!
Now that's at the end of the season, I can go get it serviced.
Yeah, it's probably close to impossible to get it serviced during season.
Yeah, they're always busy.
I can only imagine.
I can fix dogs. I don't know machines.
Yeah, me either. I'm pretty much useless when it comes to it. And I try to think I'm good with technology, and then I screw something else on that too. So.
Oh. Well, I'll send you a photo of Motorhead so you can see him and maybe use that in your class project or whatnot. And make sure you tell your husband, is he in the military as well?
He's not. He's actually a police officer. He just retired his canine. So we have his retired canine at the house. That's a Slovakian dog. And he retired him about 1.5 years ago due to a back injury.
Oh, well, please tell your husband that I said I really appreciate his work. I know that nowadays police officers are under a microscope and they get a bad rap by half the country. And we are really appreciative of people that try to protect and serve. So, and the dogs, those dogs are police officers too. So
absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. Well, have a good day. And it's nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you as well. And enjoy, I guess, your off season, and you said you're going on vacation soon too.
Yep. I can't wait.
I can only, yeah. much deserved.
Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.